And I will let folks know that we are recording this and it will be posted on our website so that folks who couldn't be here today will have a chance to see this and hear the information. So if you don't want to be seen, turn off your camera. I think we have muted everybody. We will be taking questions through the chat box, and I will introduce those people for you in just a moment. But for right now, let's kick this off with some opening words. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The leader adjusts the sails. And I'm Gail Spar. I'm a member of the Leadership Development Team, and I am so happy to welcome everybody here. We're going to have some help today. I have some help actually putting this whole thing together, and I'm so grateful for it. Two folks from Leadership Development, and I want them to wave so you can see them. First is Scott Weaver. He's Fun Church today. Say something, Scott, so if they're on speaker only, they can see you.
Hi, this is Scott, and we are recording, by the way. I did get your note. Yeah,
great. And Scott is going to be, he's been the technical help on all of this, and he's going to be, if you have, as we talk about different sites, resources, he's going to be putting the links to those into the chat box, so you'll have those. And also helping is Stormy Speaks. Say hi, Stormy.
Hello, everybody.
Stormy is also a member of Leadership Development, and she not only did some editorial work for me on these slides, but she's also going to be fielding your questions. Everything will go in through the chat box, and I'll give y'all an opportunity to have those questions asked through Stormy at a couple of places in the session, okay? So please feel free to ask your questions, and we'll try to answer them. I suspect that a lot of them will be answered in the presentations that we've got. So at this point, I would like to say hello to Reverend Diane Daugert and ask her to say some words of welcome, please. Diane?
Oh, gosh. It's so good to see all of your faces, and I'm so glad to be here. And I don't have any prepared words, so I will just say welcome, and I'm looking forward to learning more about how you do leadership at FUUN. And thank you, Gail, for organizing this.
Thanks for being here, Diane.
You're welcome.
So, I'm going back to screen sharing. This is my first webinar, so I'm trying to do it right, but I'm sure there's going to be some glitches. So, I am screen sharing, I hope. There we go. So the first question, if it comes up, here we go, is why are we here? And there's several reasons. One is to thank you all for taking on leadership roles. This church could not function without the work that you all do as leaders of the various task forces, committees, work groups, whatever it is. We want to provide tools to support you, share information about church leadership so that you know who to talk to about what, guide you through the administrative processes that we have, and things are a bit different during COVID, discuss avenues of communication, and share information about our larger faith. We think that last one's important because we want you to know you're not alone in this. We have help and resources from the larger faith, from the Unitarian Universalist Association, from our region, from other congregations, and we want you to know about those. Now, there are some things we're not going to talk about today. We're not going to talk about leadership techniques and skills, working with different personalities, running a productive meeting, goal setting, dealing with change, enlisting volunteers, any of those kinds of things. But if there's any of those things you'd like to know more about, let us know. We'll work with you. We've already developed programs on most of those things. So contact us, and there's our email, alias leadership@thefun.org, and we will be more than happy to work with you on all of them. Okay, ready? Let's start first by talking about the mission statement of First UU Nashville. I hope everybody's got this in their brains. They know it by heart, but just to remind us, our mission is to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and to act on our values in the broader world, guided by reason and compassion. Now that leads us to the next question. What's your committee's mission, or your task force, or whatever group you're part of? What is your mission? Is it in line with first UU's? Is it in line with your charge? And you say, what's my charge? Well, I think Scott is putting into the chat box now the links to committee charges. You can see what your charge is. If it needs adjusting, if you need to massage it a bit, those charges are approved by the board. If you would like to make changes, send a revised mission or charge to the board for their approval. And is your mission and your charge, are they in line with your covenant? And if you haven't got a covenant yet for your group, may I suggest that your next meeting, you want to build one. If you need some help doing that, we'll be glad to talk with you about ways that you can quickly and effectively build a covenant and then figure out whether or not you're living up to it. I said before that your role as leader is extremely important, and that's because we do shared ministry. That is what we do in this congregation, and it's the responsibility of everyone. Yes, Diane is the developmental minister, but we are all lay ministers in our own way. Being in covenant is how we do this shared ministry, and your volunteering is key to getting it done. So let's talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, where your resources are, and so forth. First of all, this is the org chart. I'm not sure it's the most recent one because it says lead minister instead of developmental lead minister, but other than that, it's pretty close to being right. You can find this on the website, and again, Scott will have put this into the chat box so that you can see, or you can copy that link and find it. I certainly urge you, if you've got any question about who's where, who belongs to what in terms of councils, or who reports to whom on staff, check it out here on the organizational chart. Quick and easy to find. Now, one of the things that have been talked about for some time is the changes in governance that we want to be doing. And I thought it might be helpful to have just a quick overview of what's been going on with these governance task forces. And to do that, I've asked Jessica Himmelreich to come, and she is, bless her heart, is here, and she's going to talk about the governance task forces, where we've been and where we're going. Jessica?
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes. The governance task force was restarted in December of this last year. It was started by the board. The board had been focused for the last few months prior to that, reading a book called Governance and Ministry, Rethinking the Board Leadership by an author named Dan Hotchkiss. Now, some of you, this is repeat information as we've been doing updates in both the congregational annual meeting as well as the half-year meeting. So you heard some of these updates already, but I'll hope to deep dive into it just a little bit further for this leadership training. So the governance task force is outlined in that book by Dan Hotchkiss. And what it is, it's a multi-year process that does two things mainly. First, it helps people find meaning and purpose through their volunteer work. As Gail just said, the volunteer work of our congregation is a huge part of our ministry, and it's the work that all of us do together that helps move us forward. And second, it helps define what is governance and what is ministry and how those two work together. So when we started to look at those two definitions, we really saw the word governance to be that day-to-day mission, the strategies to get there, the policies, it's the goal setting, it's the bylaws, it's the budget of our congregation, it's all those nitty-gritty tactical things. And then ministry comes into play in our daily practice of work, right? So it's the setting and meeting of goals, it's the implementation teams, it's those committees that we work on. The phase 1 task force has worked now December through July to be responsible for the year one deliverables. So we did a series of things. We did a lot of research. We worked with other UU congregations across the country. We worked by reading that governance and ministry book by Dan Hotchkiss. We also took on a governance assistant from the UUA. So we met with her on a quarterly basis to review our goals and the work that we were doing. The committee, the task force, was responsible for following the year one deliverables that were outlined in that book by Governance Ministry by Dan Hotchkiss and presenting it for board approval. So we engaged in that iterative process of kind of policy writing. We proposed a new FUUN governance model, and we're going to go through that in just a minute. We worked on drafts of group policies to create a board policy book, as well as creating a policy manual overview. So we have all of our church policies already. Some of them needed just a quick update on verbiage or what it means. And then we worked, and specifically Jason's on this call, he was on the governance task force as well, to work together to build a committee policy manual. So as Gail was saying earlier, what does it mean to be a committee? What is your committee's charge? How do you work through that? And all of those things would be helpful going forward. We did all of those. We put together this model that Gail has on the screen, which kind of mimics what our current organizational chart is, but it divides up really, you know, the three main components of what our congregation is. So it's the congregation, it's governance and ministry, how that shared emphasis on planning and conversation around governance goes. So the congregation is the base of the model. It's the foundation of both governance and ministry. The board is elected by the congregation, as we know. And then the ministry is just that. It's the work and services of our community and our vision. The team is comprised not only of ministerial staff, but also the committees and teams that focus their work in our community. So bringing those three components together then creates our congregation through collaboration and consultation and mutual support, and most importantly, accountability with each other. So we're not necessarily changing the councils or the groups that we move through. We're just putting more clarity on what is that governance side of our church and what is that ministry side of their church and the importance of it. So moving forward, Gail, go ahead. Thank you. So as I said, it's a multi-year process. Dan Hotchkiss in his book outlines it. We did all of this work initially just as phase one. We did submit it to the board approval, but we haven't implemented it into our congregation yet. So that's the next important phase. So phase two will outline a whole new group of individuals from the congregation. So Jason and myself and Marguerite and some of the other members that were on phase one will step down, and the board will appoint a new set of individuals for phase two. Their recommendations for next steps, according to the Hotchkiss book, is to revisit our mission and our vision and our covenant to make sure that it's aligned with our policies. We also encourage the group to read the governance and ministry book, right? And review the deliverables that we did within phase one. The big deliverable for the phase two task force will be working together on an implementation plan. Refining those tools that we put together, deliverables in phase one, and working with the board and through congregational conversations on how we want to implement these new tools for our congregation.
Thank you, Jessica, very much. And if you have questions for Jessica, you can put them into the chat box, or if you can email her, she's in Breeze, you can find her there. Thanks so much for that.
You're welcome.
Well, one of the things we've talked about a lot is that idea of working towards a beloved community. And it's the job of all of us as leaders to be part of that working towards the beloved community. And to talk a little bit about it, Elizabeth Gashir is going to be here, and she's going to tell us more about what beloved community has and what they offer to us as leaders. Elizabeth?
Well, thank you, Gail, for that great introduction. You couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better myself. So I'm going to be reading from a script on my computer. So if my eyes aren't looking at the screen, that's why. So basically, Dr. King's beloved community is where we get this phrase from. And it's a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. And racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of siblinghood. So you can go to the next slide. So the Beloved Community Committee is charged to work with the congregation to educate ourselves about the history of oppression, to encourage thoughtful examination about ways that our individual and congregational processes and cultures may be unintentionally rooted in systems of privilege and white supremacy, and to take action with the congregation and the community to work toward the goals of becoming anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural. Next slide. So I'm so excited to be here today to really tell you all about all the resources that we can offer for you as leaders, and a little bit more about our work in general. So the first thing is that historically we've created this resource packet that we've given you at the beginning of the year. But this year we've decided that we'll email all committee leaders one resource a month so that we can be in more regular communication, and so that it's on your radar versus just, a packet you received long ago. And you can use that resource at your meetings and or retreats to, kind of all be ongoingly doing this work. And we'll also just be reaching out to see how we can better support you. Next, we offer consultation and or trainings for retreats. We can be part of the retreat, or we can help you with specific issues that come up related to anything, under this umbrella of anti-oppression, inclusivity, diversity, multiculturalism, equity. Next, our Beloved Community webpage has a lot of great resources about the committee and our statement of conscience, as well as just resources in general. Then next, well, one more that isn't listed there, but we have a Google folder that's accessible to anyone, and it has a collection of resources from the congregation and the committee. So I believe you can find that on our webpage from FUUN. And then next, the Widening of Circle of Concern. This was a 3-year Commission on Institutional Change report that was conducted by the UUA, and you can find that report in our Google folder. Next, we have a anti-racist book discussion group of How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibrahim X. Kendi that begins on August 30. So feel free to promote that to folks in your committees, or if you're personally interested, you can sign up. Then next, every year, as many of you know, we offer the Nashville Pledge to End Racism. And this year it's going to be online, of course, and we're planning it tentatively for January. It's a 12-hour program, and we'll probably do 6 modules so that it's, 2 hours each, since online, that's plenty. And we've had over 60 graduates go through the program already who really, really learned a lot. And continue to utilize what they learned in their lives, both inside FUUN and outside FUUN. And the goal is to help develop confidence in everyone's abilities to integrate the Pledge to End Racism into their daily lives, to recognize and challenge systemic racism, and to confront racism and bias every day, and take leadership on ending white supremacy in our community, our culture, and our lives. And then next, and finally, actually, for this presentation, is this another?
No, I don't have another one. I don't have another. Go ahead and talk about it.
We added one. We wanted to share with you all that we, as the Beloved Community Committee and the Social Justice Committee, are partnering to sponsor a proposal that our congregation adopts the 8th principle, which is a movement throughout the UUA. And basically the 8th principle reads, "We, the member congregations of the UUA, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." So you'll be hearing a lot more about that, but we just wanted to give you a heads up that that's going to be coming forth and hopefully put to a congregational vote in January. So that is all I have for you today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And again, you can find a lot of information on their webpage on First UU Nash under Beloved Community. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's move on to some other things, some nitty gritty kinds of things that you all need to know as you are carrying out your responsibilities as the leader of your group. There are some important dates to remember. These are not by any means all of them, but they are ones that are important to you as the leader. First of all, in July, obviously, our church year begins. Then in November, mid-year budget adjustments are due. So don't forget that. Keep that in mind. Then in January, we usually have a mid-year congregational meeting. And I think we anticipate having one this coming year. February, your budget requests are due for the upcoming fiscal year. Annual reports are due to the office and that they can be incorporated in the materials for the annual congregational meeting, which occurs in June. So those are ones you need to pay attention to, particularly the budget requests. I can't emphasize that enough. Those things tend to slip up on us. So keep them in mind. Well, one of the big things that has changed with COVID is what goes on in the office of First UU Nashville. And right now, nothing goes on in the office itself. They are closed, and all the staff members are working remotely. This beautiful chart, colorful as it is, you might guess, was created by Mary Lindsay. But as she says, under the office hours, the best way to reach a staff member is by email. Office emails will be typically returned during office hours, Tuesday through Friday. They're keeping the same kind of office hours, even though they're working remotely. So keep that in mind. Reservations, the staff and the board are using the Zoom's, the church's Zoom account for most everything. And so Mary urges people to use their own Zoom accounts, to use Skype, to use any of the other video conferencing types of things that are available rather than relying on the church Zoom account. And there are a number of different ones. I know different people have different preferences for which ones of those they're going to be using. Mail is sort of a moot point at this time. The mail room does exist, and when it opens up again, you may find a lot of stuff in your mailbox because it's been gathering there. If someone has come in, and obviously they empty the mailboxes, and they will sort it, but nobody is in the building to go through the mail in the mail room in the main building. So when you get back in the main building, when we open up again, do check your mailbox and see if there's things in there. Access to the building is prohibited at this point, except for the facilities team. All of the building codes that we've been using in the past have been disabled. You just can't get in. Keys don't work. None of that works. There's a very good reason for that. I hope all of this is going to change in not too distant future, but I'm certainly not one to prognosticate. These are the things right now during COVID-19, and Mary has promised that it will all be updated when we know where we're going from here and when we'll open up. So that's the quick thing. You're on your own for making any copies, and which will be all emailed at this point rather than hand distributed. If you've got any questions, obviously Mary is in her office Tuesdays through Fridays, and she's been most responsive when we've had questions. So I urge you, keep that in mind, okay? One other thing is budget. This is an important piece for almost every leader of a group. And let me say this up front. If the committee has a budget, the chair is responsible for oversight and expenditures. If the committee is operating within its committee charge and its budget, it does not need a board approval for what it does. In other words, if you're doing what you're said you're going to do in your charge and what you have budgeted for, you do not need board approval to go ahead and do what you've already told them you're going to do. Any exceptions to the budgeted expenditures will go to the Finance Committee. All right, what else? Well, there is a lot of financial information in the archives under budget and finance related. And Scott, I believe, has put the link into the chat box so that you can find that quickly and easily. There are forms and procedures. There's a file of forms and procedures in the archives, contains budget request forms, expense reimbursement forms, and the sales tax exemption forms. That's where you can find all of those things that you need. And we do not reimburse sales tax. Some of you may have been caught on that before, but use the sales tax exemption form if you're going to purchase something and then expect reimbursement. Or talk to Mary about the exemption card and how you might be able to get that. Financial policies are also in the archives, but not under finance, budget and finance related. It's under the policies, and you can find those all there. And I think Scott has probably put those in the chat box as well. All right, let me stop here and ask, Stormy, have we got any questions? Are you muted?
Sorry, yes, I was talking on mute. No, we do not have any so far.
Good, okay, thanks. All right, well, the next things we want to talk about is communication. And as Sherry says, she quotes, oh boy, Nitin Noreya, communication is the real work of leadership. And Sherry put together this presentation last year. So if you were in last year's orientation, you saw it, you're familiar with it, but it's entertaining and good to watch again. I will tell you that it was produced before the age of COVID. So it takes things as a business as usual model rather than as COVID-19 model. So you'll hear a few things that are different when she talks about every Sunday getting the bulletin handed out to us or being in the social hall with the tables and so forth. But I think you're all bright enough that you can figure out what the difference is. So let's begin and take a look at this. And I'm going to stop screen sharing and Scott is going to start so he can make his work. Whoops, let me stop sharing. There we go. Okay. Take it away, Scott.
Are you wondering how you can get the word out? Well, you've come to the right place, because getting out is our name and word is our game. Please give a big hand to the Director of Communications with the mostest. Here's Sherry.
Hi, I'm Sherry DiGiovanna, Director of Communication at First Unitarian Universalist Church in Nashville, which we have affectionately branded as FUUN. I want to thank you for being interested in a leadership role at FUUN and talk to you today about communication. Hi, that was past me, and this is me today. Just jumping in to let you know that we have a new website, which I think you are going to really like. It's going to make your job as a leader a whole lot easier. For one, we have a new menu at the top, and everything that you need is found in one place, in the community section. As you may or may not know, 97% of the people that visit our website are seekers. They're not members and friends yet. So we have designed the website in such a way that the primary spaces are for visitors. You'll see this main menu on the front. That's largely for seekers. So before we go there, I want to tell you about the homepage. On the homepage, I think you'll notice that the announcements are now organized by category. They are announcements, events, and engagement opportunities, which is your call for volunteers. That should help people find your announcements much easier. So how do those announcements get there? That's what we want to talk about. We're here as a communication team to help emphasize your announcements, sort of like someone might wear a bright red lipstick to emphasize their lips. I want to show you where you can find information that will help you. It is now located all in the same place, so it's easy for you to find. It's on the community page under leadership resources. So you click on the community tab or the community menu item and you scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see a purple for royalty, a purple colored section, and that has all the leadership information that you'll need. Now that we have our Breeze member directory, which is accessed through a password, and we have an archive that houses all of our important documents, such as our bylaws, our policies and procedures, our budget reports, they're also accessed by a password. We no longer need to have a members only area on the website. That makes your job easier. All you have to do is go to the community page and click on our archive and files button, and you can find anything that you're looking for. Happy hunting. If you click on communication responsibilities, you're going to learn about one of the most important things about being a leader, communicating. So what? You have something to say? You want to tell somebody something? That's awesome. You should have told me. Let me show you how to do that. If you click on how do I get the word out, we're going to show you just how easy it is. We have lots of ways of communicating at FUUN. We have digital signage in our social hall. We have a weekly bulletin that we print and pass out on Sunday mornings. We have a weekly email that goes out on Tuesdays. We have a bulletin board or two. We have flyers sometimes, and we have social hall tables. So how do you manage all of that? Let me show you how easy it is. So this is what you'll see when you get to the Getting the Word Out page. It has a link to submit an announcement, but before we go there, take a look at this handy chart. It lists every publication, when it is published, what the deadlines for submission are, and how to submit it. And you'll notice that most of them are submitted with just one click on the Getting the Word Out form. And you can get to it from this chart. It is hyperlinked. So if you go to the members area, you'll see Getting the Word Out, Submit an Announcement. If you click on that, you will get our Submitting an Announcement form. And all you have to do is fill this form out with your name, the committee that you're submitting for, your email and phone, and then you can indicate which publication you'd like your announcement to be seen in. Then all you have to do is submit the announcement, sit back, grab yourself the biggest mug of coffee you have time to have, and we'll take care of the rest. So remember, you're responsible for the content of the events or the information that's on the website that pertains to you. So be sure to let me know if there are changes. But you are also welcome to make the changes yourself. If you would like to learn how to do that, just email me at communication@firstunash.org. Something else new is that we now have blogs, such as the Ministers, Social Justice, Committee for the Larger Faith, and the Chalice Fire blogs, which differ from 3 announcement categories I mentioned earlier, the announcements, events, and engagement opportunities, in that they're not as time sensitive. They're musings, testimonials, and in-depth information. We'd welcome blogs from other committees as well, so if you're interested in that, just contact me at communication@firstunash.org. We also try to protect our members, and we do not publish personal email addresses. So what we have are email aliases, such as worship@thefun.org or beloved@thefun.org. So if your committee, each committee has one of these, and it's your responsibility to let me know who is to receive the emails. The Communication Committee has also developed branding guidelines that we'd like you to be familiar with and to respect. You can find those on a PDF on this same website page, right here. And there's one more big thing I want to tell you about. And now our newsletter is bi-monthly. We publish it every other month, and it covers 2 months. And it is different than it used to be in that it is much more in-depth. It's less time-sensitive and more testimonies and stories and inspiration about the things that you're doing. So be sure to fill us in on the things that you're doing, and you have 2 months to write it. It's still due on the 20th of the month, but it's the 20th of every other month. I can't wait to hear your stories. That's communication at FUUN. We have our digital media in the social hall. We have our weekly Sunday bulletin. We have our weekly email. We have a newsletter. Now, if you want to have skywriting or a blimp, all you have to do is increase your pledge and we'll make it happen.
Sorry about that. I got clicked and got off the page. One of the things that I would like to remind you of, Sherry said in her presentation that the newsletter information is due on the 20th of the month. That's been changed. It's now due on the 15th every other month. September will be the next month that you'll need to get any newsletter articles in. So it's the 15th, not the 20th of the month. Okay. I am going to share again. Okay. Now, one of the things that Sherry references the archives and files, and we've mentioned it before, and Scott has sent you the link to them, but here you can see the listing of how the files are organized in the archives. And you see all sorts of things, budget related, that's one of the ones we were talking about, communication, committee charges, you see that down at the bottom there. And then under the policies and procedures, that's also under archives, you'll find all of the different policies that are listed and important. And I want to call your attention to one of them, and that's the Honoring the Children policy, and just remind you that there must always be 2 safe congregation trained and vetted adults present with children and youth. Even if it's just to use the bathroom, you must call in another qualified adult. And this applies in all cases, not just during classes. That's an important piece of the policy. If you want more information on it, look in the policy section and read the policy. The training and vetting is done by the DLRE and the RE coordinator. And as note, if you don't know whether you're safe congregation qualified or not, you aren't, okay? All right, well, let's go on to FUN and the larger faith. As I said, we're doing this because we want you to know you're not alone. The Unitarian Universalist Association was formed by congregations who came together for greater strength and resources. We knew that as single congregations, we didn't have nearly the voice, the resources, or the power that we could have if we came together in an association. Now, the UUA does not govern us, as in many denominations that are top down. Instead, our congregations, our polity is bottom up. The UUA responds based on what the congregations vote to allow it to do. We are part of the southern region, which is because the UUA is divided into regions. The UUA and the southern region act in our name on issues of social justice that we have voted on and agreed upon. That they create suggested action plans for national issues, such as Black Lives Matter, UU the Vote, and a number of other activities. They plan and present the annual meeting, the GA, General Assembly, for all member congregations to learn, advocate, worship, and fellowship together. And in fact, you're going to hear more about GA in the September the 28th worship service, because the folks that went to GA this year virtually are going to be telling you about it. And they also provide worship tools for clergy and lay people at their worship web. Also, the UUA provides training materials such as, and these are things that we use, the Tapestry of Faith, Our Whole Lives, so those are 2 big examples. Webinars and some very intense learning experiences, week-long, for instance, learning experiences for leaders. They offer consulting services. You heard Jessica talk about the consulting services on the governance changes that we were getting from the UUA. And they gather and distribute information about salaries, jobs, practices, and they credential ministers, RE directors, administrators, and so forth. Now, I mentioned we were part of the southern region, and you can see that's a pretty good area from Virginia up here all the way over to Texas, down to Florida, and up to Oklahoma. This is us. They put out a newsletter monthly, which is full of all sorts of information, resources you might want to tap into, webinars that are being given, and so forth. We try to publicize those, but you can get firsthand knowledge if you will simply subscribe to their newsletter at the source. And I think that Scott has again put that into the chat box for you. Now, the UUA puts out a bulletin newsletter as well, and you can find out about things that are going on at the national level, and you can receive that at this website, also now in your chat box. Well, what's next? Well, I've got to put in a word or three about the leadership development resources. We have been trying to put things on the website, on the church website, that you can use. They are online training. There are things, some that we have developed in-house. Some of them are things that are developed by the UUA, and we just provide you with links to those. But that, again, is in your chat box. You can see that link. And I urge you to take a look at these. We've got things like managing change, like leading effective meetings, and so forth. Things that may be very helpful to you as a new leader or as one who'd just like to improve your skills. So at this point, that's our load of information. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask? If so, put them in the chat box, and I will again ask Stormy if there are any questions that have come up, and we'll give everybody a chance to put any in if you've got some.
Nope, no questions.
I'll give you another minute. Scott, we can unmute folks if you want to give them a chance. They can ask them instead of putting them in the chat now.
Okay, I think they can unmute themselves, but what
Okay.
you might want to do is stop sharing the screen, and then we can, you know, like we could see if anybody has a question.
Okay.
Someone just asked, how do they reserve time on the church Zoom account?
Well, as Mary says, don't even try. You can send her an email and ask her about it, but that one is being used so much by the board and by staff that availability is very, very limited. But send an email to Mary to ask her if that time is available. She's your source.
Another thing. Oh, I was just going to say. Go ahead, Sarah.
I've got a question. We're supposed to have a senior brunch in October, and it seems to me we're not going to be able to have it. So I want to get out in the next newsletter that we will not be having it, so people will know that. I haven't talked to my other co-chair, but my assumption is that the church is not going to be open to have this event, and that most of the people participating are over 60.
That's true. We've got a couple of board members here. Would you like to respond to what how the board sees that? Or Diane, would you like to respond?
I've been wondering how we're going to figure out when to reopen. And I know that when the board, at least the 1 month I've been on the board this year, we haven't talked about it. I'm guessing it'll just be month to month. Diane, have you had any more?
Well, I can tell you my understanding, and I'm realizing I'm just beginning week 3. So dipping into all this wonderful information. So my understanding is that decision-making has been delegated to the ministry side of things, with minister and staff responsible for monitoring and making decisions as the situation changes. And those decisions are tied to benchmarks and the school opening or not. And the benchmarks have not been met, and I watch the numbers fairly closely. And they're not headed the right direction. Let's just say that. So I think it's still in a wait and see, keep monitoring kind of place. I know that in the spring, the recommendation from the UUA and the UUA board and UUA president was that we be prepared to be virtual through May. That doesn't mean that there's not another possibility, but if we prepare as if that's true, then anything else is going to feel wonderful. And what I can tell you also is that it is at least 3 times as much work to do things virtually than in person. So once that decision to go back to in person is made, there's some logistical things that need to be worked out, but it should go fairly quickly. So that's as much as I know. Wear your masks.
Sarah and Bob, does that answer your questions?
I'm not sure. I don't imagine that most of the people that we deal with at the senior brunch have the ability and the facilities to do things virtual. So I'm going to go ahead and say in the bulletin that we're not going to do it. And then if we decide that we can go ahead and do it, we will send out the usual postcards and encourage people to attend. But I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Thanks. Other questions?
I'd like to say one thing about expense reimbursements. So you'll know, you're not supposed to approve your own request. So if for instance, somebody on the caring committee spends money, the chair, I think that's Sarah right now, would have to approve the request. If the chair spends money, then you have to go up a step. Either your council chair, or especially during COVID-19, I can approve things as treasurer. If it's kind of convoluted. But I will also point out that on the archive page for expense reimbursement forms, there is a PDF that is editable that Mary created, so you don't have to print it out, fill it in, scan it, send it back. You can just fill out the form online and then forward it to whoever is going to be approving it. And also, now it gets a little tricky if you don't have a scanner because you can't forward your receipt. So my recommendation is you forward it to whoever, get them to electronically sign it and send it back to you. And then you can forward it to me and you can mail in the receipt, or you can print out the form and mail it with the receipt. It's a little complicated, but it's at least the form is editable now, which it didn't used to be.
Thank you, Bob. Other questions? All right, I'm going to go back to sharing and hope. There we go. So we've got some questions for you, and that is, are there learning needs you'd like for the leadership development team to address? Would you like to be connected to an experienced leader? And any other announcements besides Bob's very helpful one on the finances? So those are ones that I would like to have you tell me about. If there are things that you would like the leadership development team to address, please send it to that leadership@firstuunash.org. That way we've got it in writing, we can get back to you and talk about anything. And if you would like someone who is experienced to work with you, we'll be glad to set you up. We've done that over the last 2 years. We've had some excellent mentors who have worked with people, and so we're very happy to do that. All right. One other thing now. In closing, people never care how much you know until they know how much you care. And one last thing, we would love for you to fill out an evaluation right now. It's a very short one. Scott's putting the link into the chat box. Give us some feedback in terms of, did this meet your needs? What else would you like to know? And so forth. It shouldn't take you more than just a couple of minutes to do it, but it's very important. It'll go directly to us so that we know we need to make some changes. I hope we don't have to do a virtual orientation again, but if we do, this will help us. It'll also help us in terms of a real live one as well. So please, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your attention, your attendance, and your leadership in this very, very different times for us as a church community. Thank you.
Thank you.